As Michael Jordan's gaze fell upon his ex-wife on the beach, he thought his heart might stop. But when he saw the two boys beside her, identical twins bearing his own likeness, he knew his world had just been irrevocably altered. It was 4:30 in the afternoon in South Beach, Miami, the very stretch of golden sand where he and Juanita used to seek refuge from the relentless glare of the spotlight in the 90s, when the entire world clamored for a piece of Michael Jordan. This beach was the sole sanctuary where he could simply be Mike. Not the icon, not the legend, just a man devoted to a woman. Now, years later, he found himself back there, alone. The meeting with the Charlotte Hornets investors had stretched into 5 agonizing hours. Numbers, projections, strategies, all in a desperate bid to salvage a franchise hemorrhaging capital. Michael craved air, silence, the soothing cadence of the waves to clear his mind. He ambled along the sand, his $1,000 Italian loafers dangling from his hand, when he saw her. Juanita. Even from behind, even after all these years, he would recognize that silhouette anywhere. Her hair was shorter now, but it still caught the sun with the same captivating shimmer that had enthralled him decades prior. She was engaged in building a sandcastle with 2 adolescents. Michael halted as if struck a physical blow. The boys, twins, unequivocally, appeared to be 13 or 14. One of them chuckled at something Juanita said, and the sound resonated across the beach like a spectral echo. It was his own laughter, precisely his laughter at the age of 13. Michael's heart began to pound erratically. His hands started to tremble. The first boy turned to fetch more sand, and Michael was met with his own face gazing back. The same angular jawline, the same arched eyebrows, even the same distinctive birthmark on his neck that Michael had always endeavored to conceal. "My God," he whispered, utterly immobile. The second twin stood to retrieve water, and Michael nearly buckled at the knees. 2 mini Michaels, 2 flawless replicas of his adolescent self frolicking on the sand. Juanita raised her head, following the boy's gaze, and her eyes met Michael's across the 50 yards of sand separating them. The color drained from her face. The sand bucket slipped from her grasp. For 5 interminable seconds, they simply stared. 2 souls who had once shared everything, now strangers on a beach they knew intimately. "Mommy?" one of the boys inquired. "Who is that man?" Juanita clutched the boy's hands, pulling them closer. "Nobody," she said, her voice trembling. "Let's go. Now." "But Mommy, our castle. Now!" Juanita yelled, a desperate urgency in her voice. She began to run toward the parking lot, dragging the bewildered boys behind her. Michael stood frozen on the sand, watching his entire life change in 30 seconds. These were his sons he never knew existed, and they were running from him. Michael's body moved before his mind could process. His bare feet flew across the hot sand, chasing the 3 figures darting toward the parking lot. "Juanita!" he shouted, his voice echoing across the beach. "Juanita, wait!" She didn't stop. If anything, she ran faster, practically dragging the boys through the sand. Michael was an athlete, even decades retired. His muscles still remembered the speed that made him a legend. He was gaining ground. "Mommy, why are we running?" one of the boys panted. "Just run, Logan," Juanita answered, not looking back. Logan. The name hit Michael like a bolt of lightning. One of his sons was named Logan. "Ethan, come on," she yelled to the other boy. Ethan. Michael almost stumbled in the sand. Logan and Ethan. His sons had names, personalities, entire lives he never knew. They reached the parking lot. Juanita fumbled with a remote, and the lights of a black BMW flashed. "Get in the car," she commanded, yanking open the back door. "But Mommy," Logan protested, "that man looks like—" "Get in the car," Juanita shrieked, a hysteria Michael had never seen in her. Michael reached the BMW just as Juanita was starting the engine. He banged on the driver's side window, his heart exploding in his chest. "Juanita, please, just give me 5 minutes." She kept her eyes fixed on the windshield, her hands trembling on the steering wheel. The boys pressed their faces against the rear window, staring at Michael with pure curiosity. Up close, the resemblance was eerily perfect. Logan had the exact same ear shape as Michael. Ethan had the same small scar on his forehead. Michael got playing baseball at 12. "Those are your sons!" Michael yelled through the glass. "I know they're my sons." Juanita slammed the accelerator. The BMW sped away. But not before Michael heard Logan say to Ethan, "Dude, that guy looks just like you." And Ethan replied, "Nah, he's just like you." The car vanished down the street, but Michael had memorized every detail. Black BMW 7 Series. Florida plate, JVJ-2009. JVJ, Juanita Vanoy Jordan. She still used her married initials. Michael stood in the empty parking lot, breathing heavily, processing what had just happened. His children existed. 13-year-old twins, Logan and Ethan. Juanita had hidden them from him for 14 years. But why? Why would she do that? What had happened that was so terrible she chose to raise 2 children alone, rather than tell him? And more importantly, what else was she hiding? Michael pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Richardson Investigations," a gruff voice answered. "It's Michael Jordan. I need you to find someone for me. Today." Some questions didn't have easy answers, but Michael Jordan never backed down from a fight, and this would be the most important fight of his life. 3 hours after their meeting on the beach, Michael was in his private office on the 23rd floor of a skyscraper in downtown Miami. The private investigator, Jack Richardson, was already seated across from him with a manila folder brimming with information that could change everything. "Fast work, Mr. Jordan," Richardson said, opening the folder with practiced hands. "I found everything you asked for, and I must say, it's quite a story." Michael leaned forward, his hands trembling slightly. Every passing second was another second of life lost with his children. "Tell me everything." "Juanita Vanoy has lived in Coral Gables for 14 years, Richardson began, flipping through the pages methodically. "She purchased a $2.3 million house in 2010, paid in cash. She works as an art consultant for private collectors. She earns well around $150,000 a year, but not enough to sustain the lifestyle she has." "Continue," Michael said, his stomach churning with each revelation. "The twins' names are Logan, Michael Vanoy, and Ethan James Vanoy. Both were born at Jackson Memorial Hospital here in Miami and are 14 years old." Michael stopped breathing. "Father listed as unknown on the birth certificates," Richardson continued, turning another page. "But there's something interesting. The children's middle names." "Michael and James," Michael murmured. "My name and my father's name." "Exactly. She wanted them to carry a piece of you, even though you didn't know they existed." Michael's chest pain intensified. "They attend Ransom Everglades Preparatory Academy. It's one of Miami's most exclusive schools. Tuition, $45,000 a year each. That's $90,000 just for schooling." "How does she afford that?" Michael asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Good question. Officially, she earns $150,000 a year, but her expenses exceed $400,000 annually. House, school, cars, trips for the boys, clothing, sports equipment." The realization hit Michael like a direct blow to the gut. "She's using divorce settlement money." "More than that," Richardson said, flipping through several pages. "She opened 2 savings accounts in 2010, one for each boy. Regular deposits of $15,000 monthly, always on the 23rd of each month. The current balance in each account is approximately $2.5 million. Richardson continued. "She's securing their futures. College, postgraduate, whatever they desire." Michael closed his eyes, fighting the emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. "There's more," Richardson said, pulling out a set of photos. "Logan plays basketball for the school team. He's the best player they've ever had across all age groups. Impressive averages, 28 points, 12 rebounds, 8 assists per game. College scouts are already watching him." Michael looked at the photos. Logan in action, leaping for a dunk, his form perfect, the determination on his face. It was like looking at himself at 13. "And this is Ethan," Richardson offered, showing more pictures. Ethan was in entirely different settings, playing piano at a recital, speaking at a debate, receiving an academic award. "Ethan is..." Well, Ethan is different. Tested IQ of 156. Plays classical piano at a conservatory level. Writes for the school paper. Is president of the debate club. Captain of the chess team. He's won every academic award for the past 3 years. Michael studied Ethan's photos. The boy had his physical features, but something entirely different in his eyes. An intellectual intensity, a seriousness Michael had never possessed at that age. "Do they know?" Michael asked. "About me?" Richardson sighed. "That's where it gets interesting. Logan has a poster of you in his room. He constantly wears Bulls jerseys. He has an impressive collection of your memorabilia. The kid is completely obsessed with you, without knowing you're his father. And Ethan is complicated, academically brilliant, as I said. But the teachers say he has issues with authority and disdains any sort of athletic competition. When his peers talk about sports, he leaves the room. When someone mentions your name, he changes the subject." Michael frowned. "Does he hate me?" "I don't know if it's hate. It seems more like contempt for the culture you represent." He wrote a school essay on the toxicity of the winner-take-all mentality in American society. Guess who he used as his prime example? Michael felt a clench in his chest. "I need to speak with her," he said, rising abruptly. "I need answers." "Sir, might I suggest caution?" Richardson stood as well. "According to my sources, including school staff and neighbors, Juanita has never spoken of you. Not once in 14 years. When asked about the children's father, she simply states he is not in their lives. That suggests there's far more to this story." "Like what?" "I don't know, but a woman doesn't hide 2 children from the most famous father in the world without very serious reasons." Michael was already grabbing his car keys. "Where does she work?" "Design District, Meridian Gallery. But sir, she always leaves at 5:30 p.m. sharp. If you intend to approach her, I'd suggest a public place. She may become defensive." "Any suggestions?" "There's a Cuban coffee shop 3 blocks from the gallery. Café Versailles. She always stops there after work before picking up the boys from school." Michael was already heading for the door. "Mr. Jordan," Richardson called out, "whatever happened between you two, these children are innocent. They didn't ask to be in the middle of this." "That's precisely why I need answers," Michael said. "They're my children, and I've missed 14 years of their lives." The door clicked shut, leaving Richardson alone in the office, shaking his head. In 25 years of private investigation, he had never encountered a case so tangled. Some truths he knew hurt more than lies, and he had a feeling Michael Jordan was about to uncover a truth that would change his life forever. Michael waited outside Meridian Gallery for 2 hours and 15 minutes. At 5:32 p.m., she emerged, looking exhausted yet elegant, carrying a leather portfolio and speaking on her phone. He followed discreetly, keeping his distance, until she entered Café Versailles. The cafe was moderately busy with the late afternoon rush. Cuban families chatted animatedly. Businessmen wrapped up their day. The robust aroma of coffee and pastelitos perfumed the air. Juanita chose a corner table, ordered her usual café cortado, and opened a tablet, clearly intending to work. Michael waited 5 minutes, took a deep breath, and approached the table. "We need to talk," he said, appearing suddenly before her. Juanita looked up and nearly dropped her cup, her face drained of all color, as if she'd seen a ghost. "Michael, you can't be here," she whispered, glancing nervously around to see if anyone recognized him. "Logan Michael and Ethan James," he stated, sitting down in the opposite chair, uninvited. "They're 14 years old. Care to explain how that's possible?" Juanita's hands trembled visibly. She closed the tablet and tucked it into her bag, clearly stalling. "How did you find out their full names?" "Does it matter?" Michael leaned forward, keeping his voice low but firm. "Why, Juanita? Why did you keep my children from me for 14 years?" Tears began to well in her eyes. She looked out the cafe window, watching people drift by on the street, people with normal lives, no devastating secrets. "Because I knew you," she finally whispered. "I knew exactly what you would choose. I tried to tell you I was pregnant 4 different times," she continued, her voice gaining strength. 4 times, Michael. I don't remember." "Of course you don't remember," she erupted, then lowered her voice again. realizing people were staring. The first time you cut me off mid-sentence to talk about a new defensive strategy you wanted to implement. You didn't even look at me as you spoke. Michael felt a pang of guilt begin to form. The second time I tried during dinner. You said you didn't have time for domestic drama because you had to study opponent film. You got up from the table and went to your office. Juanita, if I had known... The third time, she interrupted him, I came to your home office. You were on the phone with Phil Jackson discussing rotations. I stood in the doorway for 20 minutes. When you finally hung up, I tried to speak. You said, "Can it wait until after the season? My head needs to be 100% in the game." The pain in her voice was palpable. Michael vaguely recalled all those situations, but they were hazy fragments from a time when nothing mattered but basketball. The fourth time, his voice cracked, the fourth time, I came to the gym to tell you in person. You were holding a press conference after a practice. I stood outside the room, listening. She paused, wiping away the tears that had begun to stream down her face. The reporter asked about family plans, if you wanted more children after you retired. You laughed. She looked directly into his eyes. You laughed and said, "Children are a distraction. Champions don't have time for diapers and sleepless nights. Maybe when I'm too old to compete." Michael felt as though he'd been punched squarely in the gut. The words rushed back into his memory like a painful wave. "Juanita, I was being sarcastic. I was just..." "That's exactly how you felt," she retorted, "and I knew it. That night, I decided my children deserved a father who put them first, not someone who saw them as hindrances to greatness." "But I had the right to know," Michael said, a mixture of anger and sorrow welling up within him. "They were my children too." "You had the right to choose," Juanita corrected, her voice growing colder. "And I knew exactly what choice you would make. Basketball always came first, Michael, always. Your ego, your need to be the best, your obsession with proving you were better than everyone else. And you decided for me. I decided for my children," she said firmly. "For the first time in my life, I put the well-being of others above your desires." They fell silent for a long moment. The cafe continued its normal hum around them, but for Michael and Juanita, the world had stood still. "They're incredible," Juanita said softly, her tone shifting completely. "Logan is so much like you in so many ways. Driven, competitive, naturally talented, but he's also kind, considerate of others' feelings. He never humbles an opponent. And Ethan? Ethan is different. He questions everything, thinks deeply about the world, cares about social justice. He's heard stories about famous athletes who treated people around them poorly, and he's developed an aversion to that whole culture." "Does he hate me?" "He hates the idea of you," Juanita admitted. "He doesn't know you well enough to hate you personally." Michael absorbed this in silence. "I want to meet them," he finally said. "Michael..." "It's not a request, Juanita. They're my sons, too. I lost 14 years. I'm not losing another day." She sighed deeply, looking down at her hands. "A meeting? Supervised? I'll be present the entire time. If it goes badly, if you disappoint them or hurt them in any way, you walk away forever. And if it goes well..." Juanita looked out the coffee shop window again, watching a family walking together down the sidewalk. The father carried a small girl on his shoulders while talking to a boy walking beside him. "Then we talk about the future," she said. "But Michael, they aren't your projects. They aren't mini Michaels you can mold into your improved versions. Logan already has enough pressure being naturally talented. Ethan already questions the world enough without needing to question if he's good enough for his father." "I understand." "Do you really? Because if you step into their lives and then decide it's too complicated, not worth the effort, or they aren't what you expected, it will destroy them." Michael looked at her, seeing the fierce mother she had become. "When?" he asked. "Saturday, noon, Adventure Sports Center. Neutral ground, plenty of people around, activities to break the ice if it gets awkward." "Do they know they're meeting me?" "Not yet. I'll tell them tonight." As she stood to leave, Michael gently held her arm. "Juanita!" "Yes." "Why do you still wear Vanoy Jordan? Why didn't you go back to your maiden name?" She smiled sadly, an expression that mingled love, hurt, and nostalgia. Because despite everything, you're still the love of my life and the father of my children. She left, leaving Michael alone with the weight of 14 years of wrong choices and the crushing responsibility of not making the same mistakes again. He stayed in the coffee shop for another hour, staring out the window, imagining what it would be like to meet his sons for the first time as a father, not as a famous stranger on the beach. And for the first time in decades, Michael Jordan wasn't sure he was ready for the most important competition of his life. That night, Logan and Ethan were in the shared bedroom they had occupied their entire lives, pretending to do homework, but in reality fixated on what had happened on the beach 3 days earlier. The image of the strange man who looked exactly like them wouldn't leave their minds. The room perfectly reflected the twins' opposing personalities. Logan's side was plastered with basketball posters, trophies from youth tournaments, a mini hoop on the wall, and an impressive collection of Jordan sneakers. Ethan's side featured bookshelves overflowing with books, academic competition certificates, an electronic keyboard, and posters of renowned writers and social activists. "Dude, that guy looks so much like us," Logan said for the 15th time in 3 days, tossing a basketball up and catching it. "He looked a lot like you," Ethan corrected, not looking up from the philosophy book he was reading. "I don't see the resemblance." "Are you blind?" Logan sat on his bed staring at his brother. "The guy had your exact same scar on his forehead, the same birthmark on his neck. And when he smiled, it was like looking in a mirror." Ethan subconsciously touched the small scar above his left eyebrow, a memento from a bicycle accident when he was 8. Coincidence? Miami has 2.7 million inhabitants. Statistically, it's possible to find someone with similar physical characteristics. "What if it's not a coincidence?" Logan pressed. "What if he's, you know, our dad?" Ethan finally closed his book and looked at his brother. "Logan, our mom has told us hundreds of times that our father isn't in our lives, that it's better that way. But she never explained why." Logan stood up, beginning to pace. "She never showed us a picture, never told us how they met, never told us his name, nothing. Because it's obviously painful for her to talk about it. Or because she's hiding something." Before Ethan could reply, they heard their mother's voice on the phone from the next room. She was speaking softly, but in their small, quiet house, the walls were thin. The twins exchanged a look, that silent communication only twins share. Slowly, they crept closer to the shared wall. "I can't hide it forever, Marcus," Juanita was saying. "He saw them. He knows they're his sons." Logan gripped Ethan's arm, hard enough to leave marks. Ethan's eyes widened. "Of course, I'm sure they're his sons." Juanita's voice rose slightly. "Look at them! It's like having two mini Michaels running around the house for 14 years. "Michaels?" Logan stopped breathing. Ethan felt his blood turn to ice. "I know I should have told you 14 years ago," Juanita continued. "But you remember what he was like back then. Completely consumed, absent, laser-focused on winning. He wasn't ready to be a father." Long pause, the twins could only hear Juanita's side of the conversation. "Saturday, Adventure Center. I'm going to let them meet. God help me, I hope I'm not making the biggest mistake of my life." The phone clicked dead. The twins pressed themselves against the wall in complete silence for a full 5 minutes, processing what they just overheard. "Michael," Logan whispered finally, his voice a mere breath. "As in Michael Jordan," Ethan finished, his analytical mind already connecting the dots. "That's impossible," Logan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Ethan turned to face his brother. "Think about it logically, Logan. Mom never talks about our dad. Ever. No pictures, no stories, no details. And suddenly there's a guy on the beach who looks exactly like us and she completely loses it?" Logan scrambled to the closet and pulled out a shoebox from under the bed. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were magazine clippings, collectible basketball cards, and in the center, an autographed photo of Michael Jordan he'd bought with his own money at age 10. "Man," Logan breathed out, clutching the photo. "If this is true, then our mother has lied to us our entire lives." Ethan finished, a cold fury building in his voice. About the most important thing she could have told us. Logan studied the photo with new eyes. The facial features, the bone structure, even the shape of the hands. It was like looking at an older version of himself. Ethan, maybe she had good reasons. What reasons? Ethan exploded, bolting upright in bed. What reasons could possibly justify hiding our father from us for 14 years? Letting us grow up thinking we were fatherless? We're not fatherless, Logan protested. Mom always said he just wasn't in our lives. Exactly. And now we know it was her choice, not his. Logan looked again at the photo of Michael Jordan in his hands. The man he'd idolized for years, whose games he watched religiously on YouTube, whose stats he'd memorized, whose every move on the court he'd tried to emulate. Man, he whispered, if this is true, it means I've spent my entire life trying to be like my own father without even realizing it. And I spent my entire life criticizing him without knowing he was my father, Ethan added, his anger morphing into something more complex. They heard footsteps in the hallway. Quickly, Logan put the box away, and they both returned to their beds, pretending to study. Boys, Juanita appeared at the door. May I come in? Of course, Mom, Logan said, attempting a semblance of normalcy. Juanita entered and sat in the chair between the two beds. She seemed nervous, fiddling with her hands and avoiding direct eye contact. I need to talk to you about something important, she began. Logan and Ethan exchanged a look. They knew exactly what was coming. Is it about that man on the beach? Ethan asked directly. Juanita looked surprised. How did you... Were you listening? It's rather difficult not to listen when you're panicking and dragging us across the beach, Logan said. Juanita took a deep breath. That man, he's your father. We know, Ethan said calmly. You know? Juanita paled. How? We overheard your phone conversation, Logan admitted. Michael Jordan is our father. The silence in the room was deafening. Juanita closed her eyes, clearly trying to find the right words. Why did you never tell us? Logan asked, his voice cracking slightly. Because I was protecting you, Juanita replied. From what? Ethan shouted, sitting up in bed. From having a father? From knowing our own family? From understanding where we came from? From being disappointed, Juanita shouted back, tears beginning to stream down her face. From growing up feeling inadequate because you could never be good enough for his attention. But that was our choice to make, Logan said, also standing up. Not yours. You were babies, Juanita protested. You couldn't make choices. And when we were 5, 10, 15, Ethan asked relentlessly, when exactly did you plan on telling us the truth? Juanita broke down completely, sobbing. I don't know. I kept putting it off, waiting for the right moment, and time just flew by. Mom, Logan approached her, we love you. We'll always love you. But you took away our choice to know our father. And now we want to meet him, Ethan said firmly, crossing his arms. I know, Juanita wiped her tears. I've already scheduled a meeting for Saturday. Good, Logan said, because whether you like it or not, he's our father. And we deserve to know who we truly are. And he deserves to know who we are, Ethan added, surprising himself with the defense. The twins clambered back into their beds, leaving Juanita alone with the weight of 14 years of secrets finally laid bare. After she left, Logan picked up the Michael Jordan photo again, now with a completely different perspective. My father, he whispered, touching the image. Across the room, Ethan was at the computer typing Michael Jordan controversies into Google. What are you doing? Logan asked. If I'm going to meet my father, I want to know the whole truth about him, not just the heroic version you idolize. Logan moved closer and peered over his brother's shoulder. The screen was filled with articles about Michael Jordan's darker side, his extreme competitiveness, how he treated teammates, his gambling issues. Ethan, Logan, we need to know what we're up against. If he really is our father, we need to understand why our mother felt it was necessary to hide us from him. Logan retreated to his bed, clutching the photo. For the first time in his life, he wondered if his hero was truly heroic. Across the room, Ethan read article after article, his expression growing increasingly serious. He was discovering that Michael Jordan, the icon, was far more complicated than Michael Jordan, the athlete. "Logan," he said after an hour of research. "Yeah? I think our mother had very good reasons to be afraid. But despite all the negative articles, despite all the stories of problematic behavior, one thing remained: that man was their father. And after 14 years of unanswered questions, they would finally have a chance to find out who he really was. And more importantly, find out who they were as his children." The Adventure Sports Center was buzzing that sunny Miami Saturday. Families enjoying the day, children shrieking with delight in the pool, teenagers playing beach volleyball, the constant thud of balls on the tennis courts. Michael arrived at 11:30 a.m., 30 minutes earlier than scheduled, more nervous than he'd ever been before any playoff game. He had dressed carefully: dark jeans, a navy polo shirt, understated sneakers. Nothing too flashy, nothing that screamed celebrity. Today he just wanted to be Michael, the father meeting his children for the first time. At 11:55 a.m., he spotted Juanita's black BMW entering the parking lot. His heart began to pound with such ferocity that he was certain the surrounding people could hear it. Juanita emerged first, her gaze both nervous and protective. She wore a simple white dress and sunglasses, clearly attempting to keep the encounter as low-key as possible. Then came the twins. Michael had to brace himself against a wall. Seeing the children on the beach had been jarring, but to see them now, knowing they were his sons, prepared to meet them as a father, was overwhelming. Logan exited the car first. He wore a Bulls jersey, number 23, Michael's number, and basketball shorts. His movements were confident, athletic, and he surveyed his surroundings with obvious curiosity. When his eyes met Michael's, he broke into a wide grin. Ethan followed, clad in a plain black t-shirt with "Question Everything" in small lettering and dark jeans. He carried a book under his arm and appeared considerably more reserved than his brother. Upon seeing Michael, his expression remained neutral. Studying him as a scientist might observe an interesting specimen. The family walked toward Michael. With each step, the physical resemblance became more pronounced and striking. It was akin to witnessing different aged versions of himself approaching him. "Hi," Michael said as they drew near, his voice emerging raspier than intended. "Hi," Logan replied immediately, his eyes literally alight with excitement. "Are you really Michael Jordan? I mean, I know you're our... well, but it's surreal to be standing here talking to you." "I am," Michael said, surprised by the boy's forthrightness. "And you're Logan and Ethan." "I'm Logan," the boy stated, extending his hand with the professional bearing of a seasoned adult. "I've always wanted to meet you. I've always wanted to meet Michael Jordan. I didn't know you were my... well, Dad," Michael finished, shaking his son's hand. Logan's hand was large for his age, with long fingers, ideally suited for basketball. "I'm your father, Logan." Logan beamed so widely that Michael felt his heart both melt and fracture simultaneously. 14 years of smiles like that. Lost. "Ethan?" Michael turned to his other son, who had remained a couple of paces back. Ethan studied him for a long moment, his eyes seeming older than his 14 years. There was an intensity there Michael recognized, not his own, but Juanita's when she was deep in analysis. "So you're the guy Mom thought was too important to be a dad," Ethan said levelly. The comment cut like a sharp knife. Juanita took a step forward, clearly ready to reprimand Ethan, but Michael gently raised a hand. "No, it's okay," Michael said, looking directly at Ethan. "He has a right to be mad." "I'm not mad," Ethan said, his voice remaining perfectly controlled. "I'm curious about what's so important it's worth more than knowing your own children for 14 years. "Ethan," Logan protested, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. "No, Logan, it's a fair question," Michael said, kneeling to get to his son's level. "Ethan, the honest answer is nothing. There is nothing more important than you. But 14 years ago, I was wrong. Completely wrong about what mattered in life." "And now?" Ethan asked, tilting his head slightly. "Now you found out you have 2 surprise kids and suddenly had an epiphany about priorities?" Michael took a deep breath. This son would be a challenge, an intelligent, articulate, and completely justified challenge. "Now I have a chance to prove I can learn from my mistakes," he answered honestly. if you'll give me that chance." Logan cut through the rising tension. "Cool. Want to play some ball?" he asked, pointing to an empty basketball court. "There's a court open over there, and I brought a ball." Michael looked at Juanita, who nodded nervously. "Sure." They walked to the basketball court. Logan was practically vibrating with excitement, bouncing slightly with each step. "Dude, I've always dreamed of this," Logan said, pulling a ball from his backpack. "Playing one-on-one with Michael Jordan? This is literally the best day of my life." "1-on-2, Ethan corrected dryly. "I'm playing too." Michael was surprised. "You play basketball?" "No," Ethan said, taking the ball from Logan's hands. "But you have an unfair advantage being an ex-pro. I need to level the playing field for my brother." "Ethan, you hate sports," Logan protested. "I don't hate sports. I hate toxic sports culture. Those are two different things." Michael watched this exchange with fascination. The twins were polar opposites, but there was an obvious mutual care beneath the difference in their personalities. The first point of the game revealed everything Michael needed to know about his sons. Logan was naturally talented. No, more than that. He was spectacular. His movements were fluid as water, his shot technically flawless, his court vision instinctive. He moved with the same grace Michael had at that age. But there was something smoother about him, less aggressive. Ethan was terrible, utterly terrible at basketball. His plays were clumsy, his shot missed by yards, he tripped over his own feet, but there was something impressive about his determination. Despite being obviously bad, he refused to quit or ask to be taken out. "Ethan, you don't have to force it," Michael said after Ethan missed his sixth shot in a row, the ball not even coming close to the hoop. "I'm not forcing anything," Ethan replied, scrambling after the ball. "I'm making a point." "What point?" Ethan stopped dribbling, if you could call it dribbling, and looked directly at Michael. "That not everything in life is about being the best. Sometimes it's about showing you won't give up, even when you're bad at something. Sometimes it's about being part of something because you care about the people involved, not because you're going to dominate the activity." Michael stopped moving entirely. The depth of the observation coming from a 14-year-old left him speechless. "Is this a critique of me?" he asked. "It's an observation," Ethan said, finally managing to make a shot, by sheer luck, and then mock celebrating. "I've read a lot about you over the last few days. Documentaries, articles, books. You have a historical problem with accepting anything less than perfection from yourself and others." "Ethan," Logan protested, clearly mortified. "Dude, he's our dad." "Exactly," Ethan said, turning to his brother. "And if he's going to be our dad, he needs to know who we really are. I'm not you, Logan. I'm not obsessed with sports. I don't dream of being the next Michael Jordan. I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not to impress anyone." Michael sat down on the small bleachers beside the court, gesturing for his sons to join him. "Ethan, what do you dream of being?" Ethan hesitated, clearly not expecting the question. "A writer, maybe an investigative journalist. I want to tell stories about people who make real differences in the world without needing to humiliate others to feel superior." The criticism was subtle but clear. Michael felt it. "And you, Logan?" "I want to play in the NBA," Logan stated without hesitation, then glanced nervously at Ethan. "I want to be like you, but better, kinder. I want to win without hurting people in the process." Michael looked at his two sons, one who idolized him but wanted to be an improved version of him, another who questioned him openly but in an intelligent, constructive way. "How about this?" Michael said after a moment. "Logan, I'll teach you everything I know about basketball. But more importantly, I'll try to teach you how to win while retaining your humanity. Ethan, you teach me about everything I clearly need to learn about being a better person." Ethan studied him for a long moment. "Do you genuinely want to learn? Or are you just saying this because it's what you think you're supposed to say?" "I genuinely want to learn," Michael said, "because apparently I have a lot to learn about being a father and about being human." For the first time since they'd arrived, Ethan almost smiled. "All right, but if you disappoint me, if you revert to your old ways of treating people as obstacles to your goals, I'll write a very detailed article about this experience." Michael genuinely laughed for the first time in weeks. Fair. And I deserve that. As they walked back to where Juanita waited, she had watched it all from a distance, nervous yet hopeful. Michael realized something fundamental about his sons. Logan was pure fire, passion, raw talent, and ambition, but tempered with a kindness Michael had never possessed at the same age. Ethan was cold water, logic, constant questioning, and emotional intelligence that forced everyone around him to be better. They were complete opposites, and somehow both were exactly what Michael needed in his life. So, Juanita asked as they approached, "How did it go?" "Complicated," Ethan said. "Amazing," Logan said at the same time. "Perfect," Michael said, looking at his two sons. "It went exactly as it should have." 3 weeks after their first meeting, Michael was visiting Miami every weekend, trying to establish a routine with his sons. But each visit made the dramatic differences between Logan and Ethan, and how those differences mirrored contradictory aspects of Michael's own personality. More obvious. This particular Sunday, Michael took the twins to watch a Miami Heat game at the American Airlines Arena. He had secured VIP seats, thinking it would be a special experience for both his sons. Logan was in absolute ecstasy. He dissected every play, every strategy, every coaching decision. During breaks, he would pepper Michael with technical questions about defense, rotations, how to read an opponent's intentions. "Dad, did you see how Jimmy Butler shifted his feet before that drive?" Logan said animatedly during the second quarter. "That's the exact technique you used. Same body lean, same patience to wait for the perfect moment." Ethan, seated on Michael's other side, had brought a book and was reading. "Man, you're missing an incredible game," Logan said during a timeout. "I'm reading an incredible book," Ethan replied without looking up from the pages. "About what?" Michael inquired, genuinely curious. Ethan turned the book to reveal the cover, The Jordan Rules by Sam Smith. "Book about you," Ethan said calmly. "Very revealing about motivation methods you used with teammates." Michael felt a clench in his stomach. That particular book exposed some of the more problematic aspects of his behavior during the championship years. "What did you think?" Michael asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. "Educational," Ethan said, marking his page before closing the book. "I learned a lot about how an obsessive need to win can destroy relationships and traumatize teammates who are on the same side as you." "Ethan," Logan protested, turning in his seat. "He's a legend. 6 championships. The GOAT. "He's our father," Ethan corrected calmly. "And if he's going to continue to be, he needs to understand that some of us view his historical methods as deeply problematic." Michael leaned forward in his chair, the basketball game suddenly seeming far less important. "Explain what you mean." Ethan took a deep breath, as if preparing for a presentation he had rehearsed. "I've read a lot about your leadership philosophy," Ethan said calmly. "How you believed extreme pressure created diamonds. How you thought being too demanding was better than being too lenient. You always said you'd rather be feared than loved as a leader," Ethan continued, "that teammates needed to earn their stripes before gaining your respect. Kindness was once seen as a sign of weakness in competition." Logan glanced between his father and brother, visibly uncomfortable with the escalating tension. "And when you were an executive," Ethan continued relentlessly, "you imposed the same impossible standards you held yourself to on young players who lacked your mindset. You expected everyone to be like you, without considering that not everyone processes pressure in the same way." "Ethan, stop," Logan said, his voice growing strained. "Why?" Ethan asked, turning to his brother. "Why can't I talk about it? Everyone talks about how many championships he won, how many records he broke. No one talks about the emotional toll of his hyper-competitive approach." The game continued in the background, but Michael was no longer paying attention. Every word Ethan spoke was like a mirror being held up to him. "You always said, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing," Ethan pressed on. "But what about the people who can't handle that pressure? What about those who need encouragement instead of constant criticism? What if your way of motivating doesn't work for everyone?" "Ethan, that's enough," Logan finally exploded. Why are you confronting him like this? I'm not attacking, Ethan said, his voice remaining calm. I'm testing. I want to see how he reacts when confronted with the real impact of his win at all costs philosophy on the people around him. Michael remained silent for a long moment. The roar of the arena, 20,000 people screaming, loud music, announcements, suddenly seemed very distant. You're right, he said finally. Logan and Ethan looked at him in surprise. About everything, Michael continued. I prioritized winning over relationships. I treated people like chess pieces rather than human beings with feelings. I always justified it by saying it was for the team's benefit, that results were all that mattered, that the ends justified the means. And now, Ethan asked, leaning slightly forward. Now I have two sons, Michael said, looking directly at Ethan. And one of them is showing me that maybe I won 6 championships, but I lost my humanity in the process. And the other son? Logan asked softly. Michael turned to Logan. The other son reminds me why I loved the game in the first place. Before it all became about crushing opponents, about proving I was better than everyone else. Logan reminds me of the sheer joy of playing, of the beauty of competition when it's conducted with respect. So what does that mean for us? Ethan inquired. It means you both have something fundamental to teach me, Michael stated. Logan, you remind me of passion. Ethan, you remind me of compassion, and apparently I need to relearn both. What if we try to force you to choose between those two things? Ethan asked. What if Logan wants you to be the competitive Michael Jordan, and I want you to be a completely different person? Then I'll have to find a way to be both, Michael said. Or even better, find a way to be a third thing. A father who loves you both exactly as you are. Ethan studied him for a long moment. You can say that now. But what about when Logan messes up in a big game? What about when I write something critical about you publicly? What about when your need to control and win clashes with our desires to be independent? Then we'll find out together if I've really changed, Michael said honestly, or if I'm just the same guy saying different things. On the drive home, Logan leaned forward toward his father in the front seat. Dad? Ethan doesn't hate you, you know. I know, Michael said, glancing in the rear view mirror at Ethan, who was staring out the window. He wants to be sure you won't hurt us like you hurt other people. He worries that you'll see us as projects instead of people. What about you? Michael asked. Do you worry about that too? Logan thought carefully before answering. Sometimes, when you get too excited about my basketball, or when I get scared of disappointing you if I'm not good enough. Michael pulled the car over to the shoulder and turned to look directly at both of his sons. Listen to me, he said. I love you, not for the talents you have, not for the things you do well. I love you because you are my sons. Period. Even if I never win a championship, Logan asked. Even if you never play another game of basketball, Michael replied. Even if I write critical things about you? Ethan asked from the back seat. Even if you write an entire book about my flaws, Michael said, because maybe I need someone to keep me honest. Have you really changed? Logan asked. Michael started the car again. I'm trying. Every day I'm trying. And you two are helping me be a better person. It was the most honest answer he could give. And for two 14-year-olds who had grown up fatherless, it was perhaps exactly what they needed to hear. Honesty, vulnerability, and the promise that even when he made mistakes, he would never stop trying to be the father they deserved. 2.5 months after their first meeting, Michael had established a solid routine with his sons. He visited Miami twice a week, and the twins came to Charlotte on alternating weekends. The relationship was evolving gradually, Logan becoming increasingly open and affectionate, Ethan slowly lowering his intellectual defenses. On this particular Tuesday, Michael orchestrated something special. A private training session at the elite training facility he maintained for promising young athletes. Logan had been radiant for days, proclaiming to everyone at school that he was going to train in professional facilities with Michael Jordan. Ethan also came along, but he brought a backpack overflowing with books and homework. Today we're going to work on your three-point shot, Michael said, handing an official NBA basketball to Logan. I've watched some footage of your high school games. You have incredible natural talent, But there are a few specific techniques that can take you to the next level. Finally, Logan exclaimed, positioning himself at the three-point line. I've been practicing that fadeaway you did in Game 6 of the '98 finals. Michael smiled, observing Logan's preparation. The kid had perfect form. Feet aligned, elbow under the ball, fluid follow-through. He hit 8 out of 10 attempts. Impressive for any teenager. Impressive, Michael said genuinely. Now, want to try something a little more challenging? How about from half court? Logan's eyes widened. Seriously? Like that shot you hit in Bulls practice? Let's see what you're made of, son, Michael replied. Logan sprinted to half court, took a few dribbles to set himself, took a deep breath, and shot. The ball arced perfectly, swishing through the net without touching the rim. That's it, Michael roared, running to embrace Logan. That's pure Jordan genetics. Ethan glanced up from the calculus textbook he was reading. Genetically speaking, that's statistically improbable. Athletic ability is multifactorial and… Ethan, just let us celebrate, Logan laughed, still euphoric. Logan jogged back to the three-point line, clearly eager to replicate his success. He made several more perfect shots, his confidence soaring with each swish. Dad, can I try to dunk? Logan asked. I'm almost getting it at school. Sure, let's work on your vertical jump technique. Michael positioned Logan for a dunk approach, explaining the mechanics of the movement, how to use leg drive, the perfect timing. Logan absorbed every word like a sponge. Remember, it's not about brute strength, Michael instructed. It's about timing, technique, using your whole body as a unit. Logan sprinted towards the basket, jumped with flawless form, and executed his first official dunk. He shouted with elation, momentarily hanging from the rim before descending. I made it! Dad, did you see? I made it! Michael was beaming with pride. I saw, son. Perfect. Let's do a few more. Logan returned to the baseline, more confident than ever. He sprinted toward the basket again, leaped, but this time something went awry. Mid-air, his expression shifted. A look of confusion and panic contorted his features. Dad? He uttered, his voice foreign as he remained airborne. He landed awkwardly, stumbled a few paces, and stopped abruptly. Dad, I feel… weird. Michael rushed towards him. What's happening, Logan? My chest, Logan gasped, clutching his heart. It's beating too fast, and it hurts. Logan's face had become ashen and beaded with sweat. He leaned forward, attempting to draw breath. Logan! Michael knelt beside his son, panic escalating in his voice. I can't… Logan whispered and then collapsed. Logan! Michael bellowed, catching his faltering son. Ethan dropped his book and sprinted from the bleachers. What happened? He yelled. Call 911. Michael commanded the assistant coach who had been observing the practice. Now! Michael knelt on the floor, cradling Logan in his arms. The boy was conscious but struggling to breathe, his face still pale. Dad, Logan whispered, gripping Michael's shirt. I can't breathe right. Stay with me, son, Michael said, his voice striving for composure while inside he was in utter turmoil. You're going to be okay. The ambulance is on its way. Ethan knelt on the other side of his brother, holding his hand. Logan, are you all right? Talk to me? My heart, Logan murmured. It feels like it's going to explode. The ambulance arrived in 6 minutes that felt like 6 hours. Paramedics immediately hooked Logan up to cardiac monitors and checked his vitals. Heart rate 180 beats per minute, one paramedic informed the other. Irregular rhythm, possible exercise-induced arrhythmia. What does that mean? Michael asked, squeezing Logan's free hand. It means we need to get him to the hospital immediately for a full cardiac workup. At the hospital, Michael and Ethan endured 2 agonizing hours in the emergency room while a team of cardiologists examined Logan. Juanita arrived 25 minutes after Michael's call, in a state of sheer panic. What happened? She asked, still breathless from the run. He fainted during practice, Michael explained, feeling guilty. Everything was fine, he was doing great, and suddenly he couldn't breathe. Was it during intense exercise? Juanita inquired. Yes. He had just finished a dunk and was getting ready to go for another. Juanita closed her eyes, a look of recognition passing over her face. Juanita, Michael asked, Do you know something about this? Before she could reply, Dr. Martinez emerged from the examination room, his expression grave. Family of Logan Jordan? We are, Juanita said quickly. We need to talk. Logan has a condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's an abnormal thickening of the heart muscle that can cause dangerous arrhythmias, especially during intense exercise. Michael felt as if the ground had disappeared from beneath his feet. Is it serious? He asked. It can be very serious, Dr. Martinez said carefully. For athletes especially, intense exercise can trigger arrhythmias that can be fatal. Can he continue playing basketball? Ethan asked, though he already knew the answer from the doctor's tone. Dr. Martinez shook his head. Strenuous physical activity is completely out of the question. Nothing competitive, nothing that will significantly elevate his heart rate. Michael's world stopped. His son, who was naturally gifted, who dreamed of the NBA, who found pure joy in basketball, would never be able to play competitively again. Doctor, Michael said, his voice trembling, is there any treatment, surgery, anything? Medication can help manage symptoms and reduce the risk of arrhythmias, but the activity restriction is permanent and non-negotiable. Can I see him? Of course, but he's still processing the news. It was difficult for him. Logan was in the hospital bed, hooked up to heart monitors. He looked up as his family entered, and Michael saw his eyes were red from crying. Hey, champ, Michael said, forcing a smile as he approached the bed. Hi, Dad, Logan said weakly. The doctor told me about my heart, about not being able to play anymore. Tears began to stream down Michael's face. All his life he had defined success through athletic achievement, and now his son, who had inherited that natural talent, would never get to use it. Logan, I'm so sorry, Michael said. It's not your fault, Dad. That's not it, Michael said, sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm sorry because the first thing I thought when the doctor told me was that I was losing my successor, that my dream of having a son in the NBA was over. Logan looked at him with surprise. Dad. And then I realized how terrible that is, Michael continued, tears flowing freely now. Because you're not my successor, you're not my project, you're my son, and I almost lost you today. But Dad, basketball was everything to me. I know, and that's my fault too, Michael said, because I taught you without realizing it that your worth was tied to your athletic performance. Ethan moved to the other side of the bed. Logan, I need to tell you something. What? Ethan took a deep breath, clearly struggling with something. I knew, he said quietly. Knew what? About your heart. You've been having episodes for months. You'd stop breathing properly after school games. Get dizzy during practice. I saw it, but I didn't say anything. Logan's eyes widened. Why didn't you say anything? Because I knew you were hiding it, because you didn't want to disappoint Dad. And Ethan struggled to find the words. I didn't want to be the brother who ruined your dream. Michael looked at Ethan with new understanding. You were protecting each other. We always do, Logan said weakly. We're brothers. And I was so focused on your differences that I missed the most important thing, Michael said. You love each other unconditionally. Of course we love each other, Ethan said. Even if I think his obsession with sports was dangerous, and even if I think your constant criticism was annoying, Logan added with a weak smile. Michael laughed through his tears. You two are perfect, exactly as you are. Even, Logan asked, even if I can't be what you wanted. Logan, Michael said, taking both his son's hands, you already are everything I could ever want. You're kind, intelligent, determined, and you have a heart bigger than any basketball court. Even if I can't play, especially if you can't play, Michael said, because now you'll have to find other ways to be extraordinary, and I'll be here for all of them. Ethan looked at his father. And what if he can't find other passions? What if it destroys him? Then we'll help you rebuild, Michael said, like a family, because that's what families do. Logan closed his eyes, emotionally and physically drained. Dad, will you still visit me, even though I'm not your future basketball player anymore? Logan, Michael said, kissing his son's forehead, I'll be in your life forever, not because you played basketball, but because you're my son. And for the first time since discovering the twins, Michael truly believed his own words. He finally understood that being a father wasn't about creating better versions of himself. It was about loving people exactly as they were and helping them become the best versions of themselves, even when it meant letting go of the dreams you had projected onto them. 6 months after the hospital incident, the Jordan Vinoy family dynamic had been completely transformed. Michael visited Miami 4 times a month, and the twins spent half their holidays in Charlotte. More importantly, the medical crisis had forced everyone to confront their true priorities. On this particular Saturday morning, Michael found Logan in Juanita's kitchen, not reading basketball stats or watching game footage, but studying a thick sports management textbook. Sports management? Michael asked, pouring himself coffee. I'm thinking about team management, Logan explained, closing the book and marking his page. If I can't play, maybe I can help other athletes realize their dreams in a healthier way. Michael sat down next to his son. Tell me more about that. Well, Logan brightened, I was thinking about our conversation in the hospital, about how you only focused on winning without considering the player's well-being. And I thought, what if there was a new approach to managing sports teams? What do you mean? Management that prioritizes the athlete's holistic development, not just performance, but mental health, education, preparation for life after sports. Many professional players suffer from depression when they retire because they base their entire identity on the sport. Michael was impressed by the maturity of the analysis. Logan, that's brilliant. Do you want to talk to some of my contacts in the NBA about these ideas? Actually, yes, but I also want to study more. Go to college, understand sports psychology. I don't want to just use your name to get opportunities. And where is Ethan? Out in the garden. Well, see for yourself. Michael stepped out into the yard and found Ethan sitting beneath the large mango tree, not with a book, but with a laptop, typing furiously. What are you doing? Writing an article, Ethan said, pausing to look at his father. About second chances and how people can truly change, even when all the evidence suggests otherwise. Michael sat down on the grass beside his son. May I read it? Ethan hesitated, then turned the laptop screen. The title read, My Father, Michael Jordan. An Icon's Unlikely Journey to Learning How to Be Human. Is it about me? It's about us, Ethan corrected. About how a family can form even when everything starts off wrong. About how real change is possible, but only when the person truly wants to change. Michael read the first few paragraphs. The writing was mature, eloquent, and surprisingly gentle. Ethan described Michael not as a villain, but as a complicated man trying to grow. Ethan, this is incredible. You truly have extraordinary talent. Thank you, Ethan said. And Dad? Yes? I'm sorry for being so hard on you at the beginning. You were protecting your family. I respect that. And now? Now I understand you were testing me, wanting to see if I would really change or if it was just talk to impress you guys. Ethan genuinely smiled for the first time in months. And you passed the test. I passed? When Logan fainted, your first reaction was to scoop him up and do everything to protect him. Not get angry because the project had gone wrong. You chose to be a father before you were a coach. Michael felt his chest tighten with emotion. Does this mean you accept me as your father? It means you've earned my respect. And for me, that's more important than automatic love. Love can be given without reason. Respect has to be earned. Juanita appeared at the back door. Michael, can you come here a minute? They went into the kitchen where she was finishing up Sunday lunch. These family meals had become a cherished tradition in recent months. The boys told me about the project they want to develop together, she said. Project? Logan didn't tell you? They want to create a program for young athletes who were forced to stop playing due to injuries or health issues, a sort of support network and career redirection. Michael was surprised. They're collaborating on this? Every day for the past 3 weeks, Logan brings the athlete's perspective. Ethan is researching the psychological and social aspects. They want to call it Second Chance Athletes. And they think you should be the program's head mentor. Michael sat heavily in a chair. They want me to work with children who've lost their athletic dreams. They want you to leverage your experience and influence to help these children find new purposes. But Michael, she paused, only if you can do it without projecting your own frustrations onto them. Do you think I could do it? Juanita studied him carefully. 6 months ago, I'd have said no. Today, seeing how you handled the Logan situation, how you've changed your approach with both boys, I think you'd be perfect for it. And you? Michael asked softly. What are we now, Juanita? She took a deep breath. We're a family. Maybe not the traditional kind, but we're a family. And families support each other, even when it's complicated. Even with all the damage I've done, all the lost time, Michael, you may not have been physically present for the first 14 years of their lives. But in the last 6 months, you've been more present than many fathers who live in the same house as their children. And the future? The future is built one day at a time. You've proven you can change. Now prove you can be consistent. Over lunch, Logan animatedly explained his vision for the program. Ethan contributed research on psychological trauma in young athletes. Michael listened, impressed by his son's maturity and wisdom. And Dad, Logan said, we want you to be more than just the famous name that attracts donations. We want you to actually work with the kids, to tell your own story about obsession, pressure, and finding worth beyond athletic achievement. But for real, Ethan added, not empty motivational speeches, real conversations about failure, disappointment, redefining success. You trust me with that? We trust you to try, Logan said. And we know if you don't get it right the first time, you'll admit the mistake and learn. What if I make the same mistakes as before? What if my competitive nature gets the better of me? Then we'll call you out on it, Ethan said simply. As a family, Michael looked around the table. Juanita, who knew him better than anyone and had made impossible sacrifices to protect her children. Logan, who had lost his greatest dream, but was channeling that experience into helping others. Ethan, who challenged him intellectually, but with love beneath the criticism. You know I love you guys, right? We do, Ethan said, and we know you're learning how to show it in healthy ways. And Dad, Logan added, we love you too, even when you mess up, especially when you mess up, because that's when you need family the most. Just don't mess up the same way twice, Ethan said with a half smile. Because then I'll write a much less kind article. Michael laughed, feeling a lightness in his chest he hadn't experienced in decades. Fair enough. I suppose I deserve that. After lunch, as Logan and Ethan worked together on the computer, developing the program's business plan, Michael found himself gazing out the window. For the first time in his life, he wasn't strategizing his next conquest or competition. He was simply present, grateful, at peace. His children had taught him that true victory wasn't about dominating opponents. It was about growing as a person, forging genuine connections, and using his experiences to make the world a little better. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was the most important lesson he could learn. A year and a half after that first jarring encounter on the beach, the auditorium at Ransom Everglades Preparatory Academy was packed for the 8th grade graduation ceremony. Michael sat in the 3rd row, between Juanita and Marcus Jordan, his eldest son. I can't believe Logan and Ethan are graduating, Marcus whispered. Seems like yesterday I met them. Michael had insisted on sitting amidst the crowd, not in a VIP area. Today he was just another proud parent. Logan Michael Vanoy, the headmaster announced. Logan strode onto the stage carrying himself with a confidence that no longer stemmed from athleticism, but from purpose. Unprompted, he approached the microphone. I know students don't usually speak at 8th grade graduations, Logan began, but I asked for an exception because I have something important to share. The auditorium fell silent. 2 years ago, my biggest dream was to play in the NBA like my father, Michael Jordan. I lived and breathed basketball. It was all that I was. Low murmurs rippled through the auditorium. Then a year ago, I discovered I have a heart condition that ended that dream forever. Initially, I thought my life was over. Michael felt his eyes welling up with tears. But I learned something fundamental. Dreams don't die, they evolve. Now, my dream is to help other young athletes who have lost their original dreams. With my brother Ethan and my dad, we launched the Second Chance Athletes Foundation. Applause began, but Logan continued. I learned that the greatest victories come from the biggest defeats. And that family isn't about sharing DNA. It's about choosing to support each other every single day, even when it's hard. The auditorium erupted in cheers. Michael was weeping openly. Ethan James Vanoy, the principal called. Ethan walked on stage with his usual reserved demeanor, yet carrying the same quiet confidence. My brother spoke of dreams that evolve, Ethan said. I want to talk about forgiveness. For 14 years, I hated a man I'd never met. I hated Michael Jordan. He glanced at his father. Not because he hurt me, but because I thought he represented everything wrong. A win-at-all-costs mentality, a lack of empathy, ego over family. Michael held his breath. Meeting my father taught me that people are more complicated than their reputations. Yes, Michael Jordan made mistakes, plenty of them. But real heroism isn't about being perfect. It's about recognizing flaws and working every day to be better. Ethan looked directly at Michael. Dad, thank you for teaching me that it's never too late for real change. Thank you for choosing to be our father, even when confronting parts of yourself you'd rather keep hidden. Michael stood first, applauding through his tears. The entire auditorium rose to its feet in a standing ovation. Ethan descended the stage and embraced Michael for the first time. I love you, Dad, Ethan whispered. I love you too, son, Michael replied. After the ceremony, the family reconvened at Versailles, the same cafe where Michael and Juanita had their first difficult conversation. Michael, Juanita said softly, can I talk to you? They stepped out onto the patio. I want to tell you something I've never told anyone, she said. The day I decided not to tell you about the pregnancy, I had gone to the Bulls gym to tell you everything. Michael stopped breathing. I was in the parking lot holding the sonogram. I saw you practicing alone, completely absorbed. I realized I was about to change your life forever. So I chose for you, that your dreams were too important to be interrupted, that you deserved to be the legend you became. Tears streamed down her face. But I don't regret it entirely, because look where we are now. Logan and Ethan have grown into extraordinary men. Our family is finally whole. Michael embraced her. Thank you for knowing me well enough to make the decision I wasn't mature enough to make, for protecting our sons until I was ready to be the father they deserved. When they returned, Logan was showing Marcus videos from the Second Chance Athletes Foundation. Dad, come look, Logan called. The first group of children from our program. And Dad, Ethan added, ESPN wants me to write a series about athletes who found purpose beyond sports. Do you want to be my first interview? Michael looked around the table, his older children who had embraced their siblings without hesitation. Logan, who turned his greatest disappointment into motivation to help others. Ethan, who went from a skeptical critic to a fierce supporter. Juanita, who made impossible choices with love. You know what, Michael said? During my career, I won 6 NBA championships. I thought those were my greatest achievements. And now, Logan asked, now I know my greatest achievement is being here with you, my family, my weird, complicated, and absolutely perfect family. Even starting with lies and secrets? Ethan asked. Especially because of that, Michael replied. Because it taught us that real love isn't about starting perfect. It's about choosing to grow together, forgiving mistakes, and building something better. As they toasted, Michael reflected on the journey. A shocking encounter on a beach had transformed into the greatest lesson of his life. True greatness wasn't in winning games, but in conquering oneself. Dad, Logan said, do you regret missing our first 14 years? Yes and no, Michael said. I regret missing those years. But I don't regret who you've become. Your mother raised you with so much love that you became extraordinary. And now I have the rest of my life to be the dad you deserve. As the night wore on, Michael watched his family talking, laughing, planning for the future. Logan excited about high school and the foundation. Ethan developing his blog about social justice. When it was time to leave, Michael stood in the parking lot watching the goodbyes. Long hugs, promises to call, plans for the next get-together. Logan approached. Dad, thank you. For what? For not giving up. For proving that people can actually change. Ethan joined the hug. See you next week, he asked. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Michael promised. As he drove back, Michael thought about how his definition of success had changed. Before it was about dominating opponents, now it was about being present, about two boys trusting him enough to call him dad. 6 months later, Michael was at ESPN giving the interview Ethan had requested. What is your greatest accomplishment? The interviewer asked. Discovering that being a father is more important than being a champion, that building a family is more gratifying than winning any game. The interview became one of ESPN's most watched. Logan called the next morning. Dad, I saw the interview. It was perfect. I'm proud to be your son. I love you, boys. We love you too, Dad. Michael looked out the window. Outside, normal families living normal lives. And for the first time, he didn't want to be extraordinary. He wanted to be exactly who he was, a father who had found his family against all odds. Sometimes the best stories start with, when I thought it was too late, and end with the discovery that love always finds a way back home. This was Michael Jordan's incredible journey of discovering that being a father is more important than any championship. If this story touched your heart, leave your like and subscribe to our channel for more moving stories about family and overcoming challenges. Activate the bell so you don't miss any new stories that can transform your day. In the comments, tell us where you are listening from today. We want to know where our global family is following us from.